Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Yosis. I'm from the Microsoft team. I'll be helping support today. I should have had all of you made presenters, so you'll be able to come off mute and video. I have a few slides to start, just a general overview that I can present, and then some key items ensuring our audience members don't come on video so that you all are only highlighted and then a transition slide for when we go to our next rooms. Any questions or anything I can do to support you, please let me know. And I know we also have Jana from Breakpoint who's going to be assisting as well too.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to our event today. I would like to say thank you so much for joining us for Future Lou event. We have a great panel discussion today. We'll begin shortly. Right before that, I just wanted to go through one quick ask. I've also pasted in the chat. Please remain off camera unless you're one of our featured panelists. Your microphones are currently disabled during the panel session, so you'll just hear our panelists. But towards the end, please use the chat to ask questions or during the presentation. During our Q&A session, if you can, please use the raise your hand feature to have your microphone enabled if you would like to ask your question through the microphone. Otherwise, please paste in the chat. And the panel from the beginning has been recorded and will continue to be recorded until the end of the session. Thank you so much for joining us today. And our Tequity and Talent panel discussion today will feature Anthony, Danielle, Keni, and Alisia, and we'll begin shortly.
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for being here at our session around Tequity and Talent. My name is Alisia McClain. I am the current Director of Community and Education Initiatives with the Microsoft Future of Work here in Louisville, Kentucky. I am so excited to be joined by Danielle and Anthony and Keni, people that I am privileged to call colleagues. Anthony, not yet, but we're going to work on it.
We'll get there, Alisia.
I'm looking
forward to it.
Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to give you all the opportunity. Oh, first of all, thank you everyone for being here that's joined us today. And then next, I'd like to give our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves and their role in the organization that they work with. And we'll start with, let's start with Keni Winchester Brown.
Hi, everyone. I'm Keni Winchester Brown. I'm work with Humana, and my role is lead for digital transformation. And so basically my role is to focus on growth and development of our associates and also building a pipeline of technically savvy community members that can join our organization.
Thank you very much, Keni. And we'll go next to Danielle Washburn.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Danielle Washburn. Currently, I work for Jefferson County Public Schools as a digital innovation leader. I'm really supporting those school technology coordinators, or what we call STCs, as well as our library and media specialists and our student still what we call our instructional digital innovation leader. So we really support both the instructional and the technical in terms of technology for our schools. I am honored and proud to be a part of an incredible team of 12 of us, and we are really moving and pushing ground as we are getting into these schools.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you for being here. And then we'll turn it to Anthony.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Salcito. I'm the Vice President of Worldwide Education for Microsoft. And in that role, I support the transformation and technology role to help students achieve more across K through 12 education, higher education, and libraries and museums around the world. It's been certainly an interesting time of change throughout COVID-19, but I've been working at this for much of my life, trying to help students make use of technology to help fulfill their talent and dreams.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you to the three of you for the work that you are doing. I want to start off by asking you how you got into the work that you're doing. And I'd like to start with Anthony. Actually, I'd love to hear your story on how you got into what you're doing now.
I actually started at Microsoft when I was in college. I grew up in the Bronx, and I was always connected to nonprofit organizations. Early on, I joined the work that the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, NIFTY, has done. It was started by a teacher in the Bronx. And I learned from that work and the work that I continue to do as a board member to help raise expectations. Growing up in the inner city, I often didn't see the world beyond the few blocks that I was able to walk safely. And I started working on work to help students, primarily inner city students, expand their horizons of what was possible. In my work at Microsoft in the early days, I was doing an event with Bill Gates, and I got him to speak to a group of Girl Scouts, which were the best young entrepreneurs I could get my hands on. And one of the girls, a girl from Roxbury, Massachusetts, raised her hand and said, how can technology help us sell cookies? And this was probably 1994 or so, and the internet was nothing really in the popular zeitgeist. And Bill said, well, there's going to be this thing called the internet. And after that meeting, Bill said, why don't you do some projects with the Girl Scouts on technology? And I took that as a challenge. And, this was a time when no one had technology in the home. And certainly it was not the kind of world it is now. And I decided that I was going to teach these girls not how to use a computer or use a keyboard and mouse, which is the popular dynamic at the time, but I was going to teach them how to code with Visual Basic. And not being a coder myself, but being a geek and a technology fan, I decided to take on one of the Girl Scout troops as a teacher, and we assigned teachers all around the Boston area for this tech mentorship project. I went in the first time and thought I was the best teacher in the world on Visual Basic. I had everyone sort of learning Visual Basic, excited about the product. The next time I went in, which was about 2 weeks later, and this was a group of African-American girls with no computers at home, no understanding of what technology was. The second time I went in, I was really admittedly guessing answers to questions that they had. By the third time I went in, I was completely out of my league, and really outclassed by the ability that the girls had built on Visual Basic with very little practice, with no internet resources to go search on. And from that moment in, I recognized that technology could be a catalyst for change and to help raise expectations of what students can see themselves doing in the world. And I've been doing that ever since at Microsoft in the work that we do in education. That's a bit of a long answer, but I hope that helps get a sense of where I came from.
That's a great answer, Anthony. And why I started with you is because you have this interesting juxtaposition of education and industry as a part of your history and your current working situation and what you're doing currently is what I mean to say. And so with that, I want to go over to the education side and talk to Danielle. And Danielle, ask you, what brought you into where you are now?
Yes, so a background information about myself. So I was formerly a high school math teacher. I do have a degree in math and chemistry, but during that time and teaching those students math, I began to implement technology in the classroom. And as soon as I implement that technology, besides the graphing calculator, as soon as I implemented that technology, I saw the passion in our students. In education, we have something called project-based learning. So as soon as they were able to use, for example, Google Docs or Microsoft Word or any of those tools to present their project, that is when I was like, yeah, our students can use the technology and the equal access for all. So while I was teaching that high school, I did pick up kind of like a part-time job working with Jefferson County high school students. And I ran into my former boss, Dr. Charles Lattimore, and she was kind of explaining things of what they do and how they are teaching teachers how to implement the technology in the classroom as well. Because our end goal is to get technology into students and to have that experience of those students using that technology, such as robotics, such as VR, coding, AI, and other opportunities like that. From there, I then became interested in computer science, and I actually lead the computer science initiative for the entire district and really trying to promote computer science and why it is important for all K through 12 students, even our babies, even our 5-year-olds and our 3-year-old babies that are in our schools. So I really try to do that and implement that throughout the entire district. So I'm very blessed to be in the position that I am in now and supporting those initiatives and working with that team.
This is really exciting stuff, Danielle. And just to let you know, you're getting some shout outs in the chat talking about having the great privilege of being able to work with you, Danielle. So congratulations and thank you again. Can't say enough for all of the good work that you all are doing in the organizations that you represent. Keni, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how you got there?
So hi, everyone. Again, I'm Keni, and very much like Anthony, I grew up in the inner city. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, basically in the hood. And so there are lots of girls like me. I was lucky to go to an all-girls high school that prepared me and really focused on business and teaching girls how to aspire to be things that we didn't think that we could be. I actually started my background in marketing and PR. My MBA is in marketing. My undergrad is in public relations. How I fell into technology and digital transformation is one of the things that I learned early on. We had a saying in marketing that in communications that first hired, first fired is what we called marketing communications. Everyone knew how to communicate, right? Until we didn't need you anymore and we needed a layoff. And so after I experienced my first layoff, and I wasn't laid off personally, but it gave me a jolt, right? And I was like, how do I secure myself in marketing and communications? And what I found out was that I was pretty technically savvy. And so I started associating myself with organizations and people that had hard skills that we don't necessarily associate with marketing and communications. So I started out my career at Marsh USA, where we did risk management, and then quickly I landed a position with L3 and Perk and Elmer, and you all know those folks for biosciences and the x-ray machines that scan for bombs at airports. And then I fell into workforce and nonprofit, but the thread among all of those different roles is being able to have to understand technology language, to be able to talk to those people who are implementing technology and be able to understand what skills you need in the workforce. And so my skill is not that I'm able to code. It's not that I have a data background. It's that I'm able to speak the language and able to translate that for people who don't, and able to help them aspire to get into those fields.
This is awesome. Awesome. And I know typically that on panels, we just, kind of jump right into it. But the reason why I wanted to start with sort of where everyone's what everyone's background is that when you think about it, the four of us on this panel are kind of what we're trying to get the next generation to, right? We're trying to make I don't want to say make them, but diversify the pipeline so that we have more Danielles and we have more Kenis and maybe more Alisias. That's for you to decide. And then we also want allies, strong allies like Anthony, who are realizing that we need to raise the expectation. And there's a really, Michael Eric Dyson's one of my favorite academics. He talks about the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. And everyone on this call is aware of this, whether as an ally or as an individual who has been the recipient of those lowered expectations. And so this becomes very much important. Our identity, our community, our history becomes very important, particularly when we speak about Tequity, technology and equity, and talent. And so my next question is going to build on what we have all talked about just now, which is that idea of raising expectations. And I want to ask you, in each of your organizations, how do you see, what do you see as important in that sense? Why is raising expectations important for technology, equity, and talent in K-12? Why is it important in industry? And why is it important in Microsoft's initiatives around the world? So that's the next question. And if possible, I'd like to start with Keni.
So, wow, that was a loaded question. I'll try to break it down piece by piece. So why is it important? So Humana actively internally within our organization is talking to our associates about how if you don't have digital skills, if you can't manipulate data and work Excel and at least be able to show people how you're demonstrating value in your job, you'll be obsolete. And that's not what we want for our associates. We want everyone to have a fighting chance to stay in the career and to evolve in the career. So even if your career changes, even if your job goes away, you want to have transferable skills that you can take into another role. Because let's face it, everyone can be reskilled, but some skills go across, career path. Right. And so we're learning that those digital skills, regardless of whether you're working at McDonald's and you're operating, the cashier at the front, you're the cashier at the front, or whether you are a CEO at an organization, you have to have digital skills. You have to be able to understand the impact of technology on your role and how it impacts you and your customer and all those things. And so we are actively campaigning in our organization to raise digital awareness. Right? So how do we take everyone and get them at least to a basic understanding of what's needed in our organization so that they can begin looking forward and taking control of their own careers, right? So that's extremely important. But we also recognize that we have an aging workforce as well. And so it's extremely important to us that 5 years from now, we're not in a crunch where we don't have the talent that we need to fill positions. And in order to get that talent, we need to be thinking more than just reskilling our own associates. We have to start looking at K through 12 and how do we introduce students to those skills that are valuable in the workforce today. And so part of that is just helping them understand how technology, digital skills are in the world around them, whether they know that it's happening or not. So for example, how does JCPS plan their bus routes? When they completed their survey, how many individuals are going to be there? What bus stops do they need to fix? That impacts you every single day. So we need to help them understand why it's important. And so we've been really fortunate to partner with programs that Alisia has run, such as the Butterfly Project, and partner with JCPS. We're doing some work with them and also with Microsoft to be able to introduce students to these skills. And so when I talk about students in K through 12, we also want to let people know that we also understand as a huge company that everyone is not going to college. Everyone is not going to be someone that is college ready. I will tell my own story. I went because that was the expectation. My dream was to become a massage therapist. I did not want to go to college, but I had 2 brothers, wasn't looking good. I was like, I better step up, right? So luckily we all finished, but I think I was the one my family was rooting on at the time. But everyone's not college ready. And so if you take someone like me and I was able to push through, but there are others who are like, I'm just not ready right now. How do we help them get stackable credentials that they can put into play immediately and they can get an immediate return on? And how do we take companies such as Humana that are huge companies and help them to understand that there are varying populations in the workforce? So we have those kids that are going to college. We have those individuals that aren't going to go that need those skills. And we have people that are aging out in the workforce or their jobs are becoming obsolete. The common thread there is that there are certain skills that are invaluable and that will be invaluable in the workforce in the future. And so for us to be prepared to have the workforce of the future, we've got to get those skills into the hands of those individuals. And that comes at a cost to Humana, right? We've invested heavily in the organization, but the cost is nothing compared to our return.
Thank you, Keni. And yes, that was kind of a maybe a little more complex of a question. So let me try again. Keni, one thing you really pointed out was this digital skills component, and that it's going to be necessary, whether you go to a 4-year degree or whether you go into a stackable credentials. I mean, the prices for college are astronomical. I mean, well above the even controlling for inflation. And so as people start to, as we start to have these opportunities to think about other learning resources, then we start to wonder if that becomes a viable alternative to college. But this digital skills piece, I wanted to talk to Danielle and ask you about how is JCPS addressing the issue of, or I want to say the issue, that sounds like it's, anyway, how is JCPS taking on making sure that all students have the digital skills that are necessary in order to be successful, no matter what career path they go into?
Yes, so that is a great question. So Like we have said, it all starts with our our babies, and with the vision from our very own superintendent, Dr. Marty Polio. Within, as well as Dr. Carmen Coleman, we do have something called the Backpack of Success Skills. So the Backpack of Success Skill is a digital backpack to where students can defend their learning using those digital skills, such as, for example, I see that James Unger popped on, but he leads our Minecraft strategy. And as you know, that is a product of Microsoft, but he is phenomenal on leading that strategy. And that way, we can get that digital tool in the hands of students because we do know that that is device agnostic as well. So through the Backpack of Success Skills, we want students to, as well as, think about the experiences that they have experienced throughout their learning, throughout JCPS, as well as in their classroom. It's not only content specific, but for example, we do have those after school clubs that currently are in JCPS, and that way that we are implementing the technology through that as well. I did mention the VR kind of sort of, and we do have something called Academy of Louisville Schools, which is very big with our JCPS high schools, and that will allow students to have that one-on-one training with a partner like Humana and Microsoft because it gives them the experience of what it will be after they graduate high school. It's very important that they go in tandem, so as they are going through the 9th through 12th grade, they can see what it will be for their career pathway.
Thank you, Danielle. And it's great to see the initiatives that and that JCPS is really throwing a shoulder into the wheel. This backpack of success and digital skills is really incredible. I think what's really neat about it is that, as you said, Danielle, it allows for multiple modes of entry, if you will. Like it allows for, there's no specific, I think about like the Common Core standards where like, here's the standard, here's the content. Whereas the digital backpack of success is about how can you apply technology as a medium for community empowerment, for whatever your content area is, how can we incorporate technology as a medium in that sense? With that, Anthony, I want to ask you about that. Microsoft's philosophy or motto is empowering every person on the planet to achieve more. Can you tell me more about that as it applies to what you're doing in the education sector?
Well, as we reflect on this summit, we're talking a lot about the future of work. And one of the things that we often hear from employers and certainly around the world is that there's a talent gap that we've got to address. What we know at Microsoft, certainly what we learn every day, is that there is actually no talent gap. We have the talent sitting in classrooms around the world. The talent is within all of us and certainly within students everywhere. What we have is an expectation challenge and an opportunity and equity challenge. And we've got to address both of those issues with focus and tenacity. And certainly that's one of the things that we're trying to do. One of the things on the expectation piece is what we've got to recognize is that we're living through historic times of paradigm shifting technologies. The rise of cloud is really changing the dimensions of what technology can do for businesses and certainly problem solving. The emergence of things like quantum computing, blockchain are going to fundamentally rewrite a lot of the thinkings that we've had with technology capacity and capabilities prior to the availability of these new technologies. As Danielle highlighted, the emergence of things like mixed reality, augmented and virtual reality, certainly the presence and immersion of AI. These are building blocks to solve real problems that we're facing across the planet. Everything from climate change to hunger and food production needs to solving a global pandemic. And we need students to build the skills with purpose and focus now to solve the challenges that we're going to face as a planet with technologies that we're going to make more and more things possible. We've got to change the way we teach STEM by not teaching students how to work through a program, code, or play with robots, but to understand how they can harness their thinking with these technology building blocks in things that they're passionate about. What do they want to make and do with their talents? And that's something that we've got to expose. One of the things at Microsoft we've been doing, from everything like Make Code, which provides students a very easy way to understand coding and get a building block opportunity to make programs and work with physical manipulatives, to things like Minecraft, which unleashes students to play, all the way up through an initiative that we just launched last week called Career Coach, which takes data from LinkedIn Graph, all the profiles of LinkedIn, and provides university students real connection between the curriculum and courses they can select, the talents and skills that they need to build for careers they may not even be aware of. So building a roadmap and a guidepost for students to chart their skills development, their education, and peer group connections to build a career forward approach is something that we need to do, because there's tremendous opportunity. We just have to address those challenges of equity and certainly raising expectations. And if we can do it as early as possible, we'll start to overcome some of the biases that we've had, as well as start to fuel the pipeline of talent to drive the next generation of innovation. At Microsoft, we build tools to help people and companies build and drive change and innovation and make impact. And it's got to start with that impact we can have on young people in classrooms. And it starts, frankly, by celebrating great leaders and heroes like Danielle.
Hey, nice. So before I go, because Danielle, I have a question for you, but I want to ask you one follow-up to that, Anthony. Recently, Microsoft decided to allow the Imagine Academy to be free. Can you tell me a little bit about, first of all, what is Imagine Academy,
Sure.
and what drove that decision to go ahead and make it free and accessible for every school who has a Microsoft account?
Well, I think some of it is the emergence of the tools that I highlighted before. We actually launched something called Microsoft Learn, which is a repository of curriculum and content that anyone, all of us learners, can get access to for free to get the skills that they need to get prepared for industry needed and job ready skills, in some cases including certification to enable people to get certified. Imagine Academy had always been delivered to schools and universities to help students get access to curriculum that can be taught in clubs or inside of a classroom to prepare them for third-party certification to get a job-ready certification. That content is now all available in Microsoft Learn. So all of the curriculum that we made available through Imagine Academy was just made available for free, just to make it easier for everyone to get access to. And we also have vehicles now that we can make it easier for people to find independently. Before, we needed institutions to deliver and support that curriculum deployment. So it was done through the core licensing and go-to-market models that Microsoft has had. But now with the emergence of large data sets that we can actually put content and curriculum in cloud to stream to everyone, it made it easier for us to make Imagine Academy free. Essentially what it does is it provides everything from office skills to get students a certification on Microsoft Office products or the whole suite, to things like Microsoft Azure, data science, etc. Students could take those courses, get certified, get a summer internship, get a summer job, get prepared for college. Certainly when they leave college, use that certification to get ready for a job. So those are the reasons we did it, and certainly we're excited to scale it out to many, many more students.
That's awesome. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you for your work around access in that sense, definitely. Danielle, I want to go back to you and ask you about, and it's okay to mention other companies, but some of the work that JCPS is doing around the backpack that you spoke about, and kind of what Anthony is talking about, where these large technology companies are saying, hey, here's this or here's that. Tell me a little bit about what this or that means for JCPS. Like, what exactly is JCPS using from industry technology education?
Yes, and we are what we call a digital agile district. So we do have access to Google, Microsoft, and Apple because we do want our students to experience all three or more of those platforms. Because like Keni said, that when they go out in the workforce, we do want them to easily transition into that workforce. With the Backpack of Success skills, we also took a look at something what we call teacher digital agility, because we do know that without the student learning, this would not have been made possible without our teachers. So the incredible Kathleen Receiver on our team, she leads that strategy, and she makes it a point to upskill our teachers in regards to all of these platforms. So we do have the Microsoft certification, the Apple certification, as well as the Google certification. The Backpack of Success skill, it does live in Google. So our students are very knowledgeable on how to access their Google Docs and other things like that. But we also want to point out that it's not all about Google. We do have students that are using Microsoft tools, those Microsoft Teams, and other things to build those artifacts to include in their backpack, because we do want our students to be digital agile.
Awesome, thank you, Danielle. And Keni, I wonder if you could add on from the industry side. How important is it what Danielle is talking about as far as students, as Anthony pointed out, driving the next generation of innovation from your standpoint and in industry? How important is it that everyone is digitally literate as they come into the industry?
So it's extremely important. And I think Danielle touched on digital agility. And so it's important for us at Humana that our associates and, our young interns are coming in and they can not only speak the language, but go between platforms. As it relates to data, maybe they've only experienced Tableau, but we know that if they can work in Tableau, they can work in Power BI. If they've used Google Sheets, they can fumble their way through Microsoft Excel. So they need to be able to be familiar with the platforms and to be able to exercise their skills and think critically about how to apply something they do in one platform to another. And so it's really an exercise in problem solving, analytical thinking, in addition to digital skills, right? So it helps them be more well-rounded. But one of the other things that's really important that both Danielle and Anthony touched on is equity and access. And so for us, it's important to have, for Humana specifically, and some of my colleagues are on the call, Stacy Brooks particularly, who will be speaking tomorrow. It's really important for us to have a workforce that represents our community, right? And so when we talk about solving problems, and we talk about giving students the skills to solve problems, we want them to solve the problems. We can't do everything from an ivory tower. And so we need people in the community, in the field, that are experiencing those issues every day to be able to give us feedback about how our changes impact them, right? And so it's important that in order for us to have a diverse workforce, that we have a diverse pool of candidates to pull from. And we can't have a diverse pool if all of our community doesn't have access to learning the skills. And so I would like to second Anthony. It's not about whether they're capable, it's whether they have the opportunity. And so we really are getting behind any effort that we can possibly support here locally in other communities as well, that allow us to get skills into the hands of everyone, and specifically underserved and diverse populations. So it's extremely important because the diversity in the population also inspires diversity in thought, and it also inspires diversity in how we approach problems. So it's extremely important to not just us in our workforce, but to our bottom line.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Keni. And I love that you talked about having a diverse pool of candidates and that it's about equity and access as well. We have a question in the chat. There was one question, but then it was answered. But I also want to address a question that says, can you all talk about upskilling within the existing workforce? The education system is one part, but what about the existing workforce? And Keni, I know that we've partnered with you on with Humana on upskilling the current workforce. Can you speak to that question?
So Humana has a variety of upskilling programs, and I want to differentiate reskilling from upskilling, at least in terms of how we think about it. We have reskilling programs where we're taking people that don't have any background in a specific type of career, and we're completely reskilling them so that they can go into a brand new career that they've never worked in before. And so we were happy to participate with Microsoft, Future of Work, to allow some of our associates and also community participants to go through the data science reskilling program. And that program allowed people that did not have any background in data science or data analytics, to learn a brand new skill. It was immersive. They took a big chance. Most of these folks could not work full-time roles while they were participating in this program. But at the end of it, they had an opportunity to interview with local business, Humana being one of those organizations. I mentioned Stacy Brooks, who's one of my colleagues. He was one that accepted several of our candidates that came out of that program and designed an experience for them that allowed them to basically learn as they go. So we understand at Humana that 10 weeks, 12 weeks in a program may not be enough to allow you to just jumpstart, but it shouldn't be a barrier to launching you. And so Stacy's program allows those individuals to go through several rotations throughout the year and really learn hands-on what they need to know to be successful in their new career. Then we have upskilling programs, and those upskilling programs allow people to grow in place. That's someone like me who's an individual contributor. Maybe my job every day is associate growth, and I'm working with what classes can I put people into, but I still need to potentially have, SQL knowledge. I may need to be able to navigate through Excel. I may need to create a dashboard that shows, who I'm impacting and how many people I'm impacting and the trends. And so that goes across all of our job families and all of our functions, and we upskill in that way. And so individuals, our associates, have the opportunity to participate in many different opportunities at Humana that allow them to upskill. Most recently, we've been partnering with an organization called General Assembly to provide data skills, but we also use Percipio, which is an on-demand learning platform. We have Skillsoft, where folks can take on demand, and we have several homegrown systems and platforms that allow people to learn skills as well. I think it's really important for any organization to be able to provide development opportunities to allow their associates to grow. It's extremely important. People need to be able to grow in place, but it doesn't just stop there. So in addition to allowing people to grow, it's how do we help them transition? So you've added those skills, and how do we start applying them in the workforce, right? So is that through a mentoring opportunity? Is that volunteering? Humana has a huge volunteer workforce, and so we're out in the community every day. So how do we allow an associate who has maybe learned a data skill to apply that to a local nonprofit and to help that organization, so it helps the nonprofit, but also helps the associate to grow? And so we're also growing opportunities for internships and externships and on-the-job training. So it's a work in progress, but it's something that we know that needs to happen in order for us to have a viable workforce. And so part of that workforce planning, when we look at, how many folks will we need in specific roles in 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, means that we're going to have to look at not just our external pipeline, but our internal associates, because we know oftentimes that some of those roles may be gone in 3 years. So how do we start targeting those individuals and helping them transition into our new workforce skills?
Awesome. Thank you, Keni. Incredible work that's being done at Humana. And I love the community-facing partnerships that you're working on and looking towards the future on. I see that as definitely part of the future of work for sure. Anthony, I want to ask you, as far as Microsoft Learn goes, how is that supporting upskilling within the existing workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly for individuals, Learn provides a great tool to get access to curriculum and resources to help you get on a path to embracing technology-based career options. And one of the reasons we have, made acquisitions like LinkedIn and GitHub is to help with that pathway. So, with LinkedIn and the work that LinkedIn does to enter you into a community of job seekers and career navigation, that's certainly a valuable tool. And GitHub being a tech community, all of those are assets and resources that we make available. And the curriculum and Learn continues to evolve and grow. We also have been working with employees inside companies already to help upskill and help them with their career navigation. We just launched an offering, a platform really, called Microsoft Viva, which helps companies get access to culture building, insight building materials and support inside their organization to get their employees on a upskilling pathway to further their career, and helping corporations embrace tools to help their individuals, very much like Career Coach does for universities, Microsoft Viva does for corporations. We actually have to do this work every single day, and we've increasingly been partnering with enterprise organizations on skills development needs. So getting close to what corporations are looking for, the talents and needs that they have to help innovate, and applying that across our programs, both to individuals, but also through institutions to help students.
Awesome, thank you. I want to end, and then we will take some more questions from the chat. So if you, for everyone who is here as an attendee, if you have questions for one of our three wonderful panelists, please put them in the chat, and we'll be coming to ask those questions to them. One thing I wanted to end with, Tequity and Talent. Tequity, it's a great word, has a great ring to it, right? Tech equity, but there are definitely challenges associated with it. What I'd like to end with is if each of you could talk about some of the challenges that you faced, and then also end with a victory or things that you're most proud of in your work, or things you're happiest about, or things that you would like people to know about how you overcame challenges, if you will. Danielle, if it's okay. So wait a minute, let me rephrase the question, because that may have been, we're looking Tequity and Talent, equity, creating access, creating equity in technology. What are some of the challenges you faced? What are some of the things you're most proud of? Danielle.
Yes. So with equity, before Dr. Marty Poliellen, my current leader, Heather Worrell, which she is amazing if you do not know Heather, there was kind of like a digital slump. So we encouraged schools to implement technology, but it wasn't consistent. So with that backpack of success skills, we now have the consistency for all students to give students what they need to have access to technology. So with that, we do know when we talk about equity that representation matters. We do know that we want to see our community partners, of our Black and Brown community partners, as well as our female students, because we do know that there is that gap between the IT pathways as well as our female students. So another amazing person on our team, Matt Buckle, he leads the Girls Who Game strategy, and that really gets access to girls, and they have that female presenter, that female role model with those female students that they can actually see that they are working in that IT field. So when we talk about Girls Who Game, when we talk about Girls Who Code as well, that's just another avenue to give that female student how they can see, oh yes, I can do that too, because now I see her doing that. So part of that solution is to, of course, give access, representation, as well as opening them up to experiences that they may not have ever experienced. And that is made possible through those after school clubs, through the academies of Louisville that we currently have in 15 of our high schools, through those backpack of success skills, and through implementing more technology in the district. I do know hopefully in the near future that we are a one-to-one district, meaning that all of our students will have access to some sort of device, whether it's a Chromebook, whether it's an iPad, whether it's a desktop, but all students will have access to a device. And we do know that opening up that access will only increase those digital experiences for our students and possibly increase students emerging into the IT pathway. We do know that IT is not the only field, but opening up those experiences will be huge for our students.
Thank you, Danielle. Want to turn to Keni next, if you will, talk about some challenges and victories in Tequity.
So I think a challenge, not just for Humana, but for all organizations and anyone that's running a program, is to be intentional. And so a challenge for me is often that, maybe I'm tasked with leading a program or reaching a certain number of people, and my primary goal may not be to focus on the equity and the access components. I think it's important that we're all intentional, that we weave the equity, that we weave casting a wider net into our programming, so that we're approaching Tequity with intention as well. And then I think one of the successes and one of the things that I really like about Humana is being okay to stop a program and say, we're going to give it 2 weeks, or we're going to give it 3 weeks. We're going to go out and try to find the people that we're searching for, because it's important to have representation. And so I was lucky to partner with Alisia, where we had to, we were on a team where we said, stop. We're not going to go forward unless we can reach 10% or reach 15%. You have to be willing to do that. And sometimes that, just that little short time has a big payoff in the end. So I think the biggest takeaways for me are, even though it's a challenge, don't be afraid to kind of raise your hand and say, I know that this isn't the purpose of our programming, but let's be intentional about making sure that we're reaching women, that we're reaching minorities, that we're reaching people that are international, all of those kinds of things. And then and carrying that forward in everything that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought that example up, Keni. That's what I was hoping you would talk about, because it really, to me, represented that stop where everybody said, wait a minute, this is not what we want. I just feel like it is representative of a new approach of saying, wait a minute, we're going to make this a priority. We're not just going to stop. We're not just going to keep going and say, well, we tried and we'll try again next time. But that intentionality that you spoke about, I think, is so important. Anthony, ending with you, challenges and victories.
Certainly, I work with a lot of institutions, education institutions around the world that are looking for transformation. Often the big challenge that I face is they see the impact of technology and think that the transformation is about the technology. And the biggest challenge that we have and we face in education as leaders who may be listening is to recognize that this is a people transformation. And the people part of this all is the most important, whether it's shifting culture, creating a growth mindset across your institution, changing expectations for learners, educators. That's a real challenge. On a technology side, we've got to do a better job of managing data. What are we collecting? Are we collecting the right things? Where is it? Is it available? Is it acting to drive change and insight, et cetera? Those are two of the issues that I think we have to struggle with. Creating a growth mindset and a people-first transformation. And then on the technology side, doing a better job of managing data. From a success standpoint, I would have to say this last 12 months has been a success as it relates to elevating and maturing our thinking around technology's real role. I've been doing this work for a few decades and helping technology transform learning potential and opportunities. And I have to say, many educators that I've connected with over that time have been fearful that the rise of technology would equate to a diminishment of their value and role. And we often thought technology was an opponent of teachers in many ways. And that was always a crazy idea, but many teachers were fearful of the rise of technology diminishing their value. What we saw in COVID is in a time where the world was looking to technology as the vehicle for learning, the role of teachers was never more respected. One of the things I do is I'm on the board of teach.org, which is in the mission of our organization is to accelerate the profession of teaching, to inspire inner city, primarily people of color and probably male people of color to help get into the profession is what we need in inner cities for students. We've seen a tremendous surge in the value, the respect of the role of being a teacher, because we all saw it firsthand on our kitchen tables, the role teachers have with our children, working through problems, the value and commitment that they have, the sacrifices that they make. And I think that this is a tremendous achievement for the profession. Once we declare victory over COVID and have parades to recognize first responders, doctors and nurses, et cetera, Teachers will be on a float where we can celebrate and thank teachers for the work that they've done. And I hope this is an opportunity for us to recognize that we need great teachers who think differently about their canvas of learning, embrace a wide variety of modalities that use technology in different ways to extend their value, not diminish it. Hopefully we remember that going forward. When we get back into classrooms, we've got to retain the recognition of the role of teachers, and hopefully we can inspire a new generation of amazing teachers that have been through this COVID experience with their teachers, seeing them shine in the way we've done over the last 12 months.
Teachers on a float. I think we just need to like keep that, in our heads for later, because that would be amazing. Perhaps a derby parade with teachers on it would be amazing. Danielle, I see you with like a wand and like some kind of interesting hat.
I'm all about it.
We welcome that. So we need support we can. That will be so much fun.
That would be amazing. And it's true, Anthony, exactly what you said. Teachers were never more needed. We had all the technology, right? But we still definitely needed teachers. So amazing. I just want to address a couple of questions in the chat, and I'll open it to whomever wants to answer them. If you just want to unmute yourself, if you want to answer the question, then I can call on you. Jessica is asking, what source are you using as the universal industry skills standard?
I can address some of this. Microsoft has been working on sort of defining a set of competencies to help schools drive. And there's no universal standard, unfortunately, but we worked with OECD and UNESCO to influence the PISA test, which includes focus on 21st century competencies. And it does provide value to understand how students can build everything from communication, collaboration, computational thinking, critical thinking, creativity, caring, curation, skills that we think are going to be important. Microsoft does have a competency framework to help schools use as a guide to identify basic, intermediate, advanced, and expert level competency development across the board. And we have tools for teachers and school leaders to build a foundation for exposing and identifying what competencies look like in development. We often talk about the value of creativity, collaboration in our classrooms, but we very rarely test on this, assess students' progress on this, or give teachers any sort of consistent guidebook to use and reinforce a climate of competency development. So we've put one out there and made it available to school leaders and educators, but certainly we recognize that many leaders will want it to reflect on what competencies they think are meaningful, create a foundation for real progress development there. And certainly that's something that we can make available. It's on our website. If you go into Microsoft.com/education, under school leaders, you can see access to our school innovation toolkits and resources for school leaders, which includes our competency framework.
All right. Let's see. I have another question. Thank you, Anthony. I'm sorry. Yes. So I have one more question. The National Chamber of Commerce has a platform for workforce development that invests in early childhood education. Where are early childhood / workforce development efforts being made in Louisville?
There are so many. I guess I'll take a portion of this. I saw Michael Gritton on the call earlier with Kentuckiana Works, and the Kentuckiana Works team has tons of workforce programs alongside the Louisville Urban League, Goodwill, many of our local community nonprofits that you don't know are doing this work are out doing the work every day trying to reach folks and help them reskill in critical skills areas. And so I think in any organization, you can go to your local chamber. You can also go to your local workforce organization. And here in the 7 counties, it's Kentuckiana Works, right? And they'll be able to connect you to either your local universities. They'll be able to connect you with your community college systems and also any workforce training programs. When we talk about pre-K and kind of anything outside of that K through 12, I can't really answer specifically, but what I will say is that there are tons of organizations such as Humana and others who are looking at how do we help kind of bridge the gap, because what we do know definitely is that kids coming into kindergarten, if they are not ready for kindergarten, they're not going to succeed, right? So they're going to stay behind and fall behind. And so it's important that those kids have access to technology as well. All of them know how to swipe right. They know how to do things on their iPads and on their phones. So how do we turn that into real learning opportunities and Head Start and other programs that allow them to make those more learning opportunities? So I encourage anyone who's interested in a workforce program to start, with those local organizations, and they can kind of go from there. So hopefully I answered that question.
Thank you, Keni. Let's see, one question. What could Louisville do to help encourage employers to take a chance on applicants who do not have a traditional 2-year or 4-year degree? Anthony, if you're open to it, I would love to hear your perspective on this, particularly because I know that Microsoft has dropped their degree requirement for software engineers coming in. It's sort of skills-based if you can do it. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the values of recognized certification. So people who don't have a traditional path to education degree can look at industry recognized certifications across many different fields. That's certainly something that I would encourage employers to value, but also individuals to seek. It's obviously much lower cost, much more flexible, et cetera. The other thing is certainly valuable is internships and exposure to pathways that give employers an opportunity to see talent that they may not have hired at first pass, but may give more extensions and gateways to employers. We're working through that more and more now with corporations to get more connected to students earlier, in some cases to help build understanding of what they need to do to attract students to their corporations, but also to give universities insight on skilling. We're working with Kroger and University of Cincinnati to give real world problem sets to University of Cincinnati students that expose them to what the industry looks like, and also gives Kroger an opportunity to identify talent and bring talent into their organization. So that's more of a traditional model, but we certainly have to encourage it. We recognize that diverse, as well as creating an accessible workplace, is just going to bring more value and talent into a corporation. So we still value university degrees, don't get me wrong. It's certainly something that we still seek and value across our candidates, but we don't want to, be blind to the amazing talent that exists out there, and we have to be much more creative and I would actually expect employers increasingly to do this by necessity, frankly. Our world has changed from a world of work where people go after jobs. They move to cities, they move to countries to find work. They make sacrifices to go where the work is. We're moving into a world where jobs find people. And it's flipped. Employers need to create an environment where they are attracting and creating opportunities to mine and find the talent that exists around the world, increasingly with job flexibility, increasingly with new programs that create less restriction and obstacles to have people come to their corporations. And that's going to be the great differentiator for company success going forward. How open they are to create an environment that brings in the talent that they have been missing, and frankly creates a flexible environment for them to continue to innovate. That paradigm shift of a world of work where people go to find jobs to where jobs find people is something that is core to the future of work conversation that we're having at this summit. I think it's a critical thing for employers to remember as we go forward.
And Alisia, I'm sorry, if you don't mind if I could follow up. I know
Absolutely.
I feel like I have been preaching the Academy's Louisville model, but that is the reason why it is so important to have that model, because of those connections with the business partners. For years, students have asked the question, why am I learning this? Or why do I need to know this? But through that Academy of Louisville model, they can have the experiences to become connected to education and to see those expectations of our world. So by connecting those models and aligning the education and the workforce development, better prepare students for their post-secondary career and success. So I just wanted to add that point in there. The Academy of Louisville's model, I think that is where, not I think, I know that is working. That needs to stay around. And of course, we do need those business partners to be a mentor to those students and to offer up those opportunities.
And Alisia, if it's okay, I want to add a final thought as well. I think when we talk about Tequity and we talk about things such as like removing barriers around degree, we also have to understand that there are other components that we should also be considering. So, for example, you drop a degree requirement that allows a certain number of people to come into a job that couldn't before. But what about those folks that are re-entering the workforce because they have, a background? Or something on their background that's eliminating them, but they could potentially be a good candidate. That opens up a world of diversity. And then we need to not just stop there. When people enter the workforce, what are we doing as organizations and as companies to allow them to grow? So what policies do we have in place that are hindering people from being digitally savvy, that are hindering equity and diversity initiatives? For example, does your tuition reimbursement program only allow you to pay for schooling that ends in a terminal degree, right? Does it allow certifications? Or do you have policies in place that don't allow hourly employees, for example, to do skilling during their lunch hours, right? Those are things that impact all of us. They impact single moms, they impact people in urban neighborhoods, they impact people that catch the bus. So what policies do we have in place that we could potentially change that'll open up our aperture and allow us to attract more talent, both internally and externally?
Absolutely. And thank you so much. That's a great way to end it, and thinking about what more can we do? How can we drive innovation forward in all of our capacity and in all of our organizations? And so with that, I'm going to close out this panel. Want to say a sincere thank you to Danielle, to Anthony, and to Keni for taking your time out to educate all of us around what we should be thinking about, what's going on right now, and what the future holds as far as Tequity and Talent. Thank you, everyone, thank you to all of the attendees for being here. And we look forward to seeing you at that Derby parade at some point where those teachers are on floats. I think that may be what I'm going to work on next. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.